on Eurocodes, and of course the national policies.
Thank you very much. I'm not so sure whether I'm a pop star. In any case, I won't sing now. And that is not my favorite profession. With regard to the building cost, we don't have very detailed figures. What the building cost I was referring to, that is directly from the Austrian Statistical Office. So these are the official figures with regard to the building cost development, relative prices. So it is no absolute prices, it's relative prices, like an inflation of prices in the construction sector. And what we know, that is the figures which I have explained shortly. That means that the share of the ground cost, so the cost of the plot, that increased from 15% to 30%. 30% it is now. 15%. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know how long it is ago. I think it has been between 2000 and 2005 or something like this. But that I would need to figure out. The absolute cost the absolute value of the building cost, I don't have all figures, because that depends very much on the type of building we are speaking about. So just to give you a figure, for an average residential building in Austria, it would at present be somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 euros per square meter, which is quite high. I remember a presentation of Joop, our Dutch colleague. Where is he sitting now? Oh yes, in the back. You presented a very interesting case of a residential building was it in Almere, or yeah, in Almere, where, if I remember well, the square meter cost was below 1,000 euros. Yeah, so there are big differences. But the point I wanted to make actually was the tendency. So it is increasing, and that is hurting, meanwhile, the social housing companies in Austria to an extent that they are producing more, let's say, houses which are not subsidized, since the requirements for these houses are lower than for the subsidized houses, especially with regard to energy efficiency. And therefore they are diverting their investments into a sector where they can a little bit reduce the building cost. I hope that answers at least partly your question. My task now actually is to speak about Eurocodes. I have given my presentation a slightly shifted title, which is Simplification of Eurocodes. Simplification of Eurocodes is an issue not only in Austria, also in many other countries, especially in Germany. Unfortunately, we have no representative of Germany today with us. In Germany, there is a project which is called Praxisregelnbau, and the purpose of this, or the goal of this activity, is to influence the elaboration of the next generation of Eurocodes in a way to make them better applicable and more practical. Our approach in Austria is a totally different one, and I will present it to you now. We started with a survey in 2014 about the Eurocodes and its application in Austria. And the interesting thing, I just filtered the most interesting statements we summarized at the end. There are as many users of Eurocodes which are satisfied with the application of the Eurocodes as which are dissatisfied. it's approximately 45% who said, it's fine, I can cope with them, Eurocodes is good. And also approximately 45 said, no, it's a big problem for us, we don't like them. And there are some 10% in between. The main points of criticism towards the Eurocodes are, first of all, the effort and detail of calculation. And secondly, that this effort is not, let's say, is not balanced by adequate results. So the structure which has been calculated with the Eurocodes is not finally cheaper and slimmer, if I can say so, than the construction which would have calculated with our old, much simpler Austrian standards. So, lot of effort of calculation, but no payback, so to say. And then, of course, especially for smaller companies, the Eurocodes are very expensive. It's just a matter of money, and that is a problem. Instructions and guidance were interestingly requested by nearly all, or let's say 80% of the respondents, which means also those which are satisfied with the Eurocodes, still, apart from them, wanted additional instructions, additional guidance in order to apply them easier and to be able to cope with them better. There is also not sufficient education and training for the Eurocodes in the technical schools. At universities, it's better. So people with university degree have a better knowledge of Eurocodes, but the practitioners, the master builders, which have no university education, they are struggling with the Eurocodes because they don't learn enough at school about the Eurocodes and their application. Again, 70%, so also including those who are satisfied actually with the Eurocodes, still request a simplification of the Eurocodes. And an important point in this respect is that they request this simplification, especially with regard to the lower consequence classes. Everybody who knows the Eurocodes knows the consequence classes, but that is a categorization of, let's say, the type of building, how complicated the building is and how high the risk is related to a structural failure of this building. So if it is a concert hall, for example, the risk level of a structural failure is much higher because there are many people would be hit if there is a major damage compared to a one-family house. If there a ceiling collapses, it hits perhaps 2 people or 4 people. So consequence classes, 1 and 2, there are 3 altogether. 50% of, and that is also an interesting result, 50% of respondents use Eurocodes rarely or never. You must imagine what this means. Probably it's the part of the SMEs, but what are they using then? Probably the old codes, which are already withdrawn, or other methods. So that is something which made us very, very skeptical about the practical application of the Eurocodes. Just to give you a taste about the problem. This is all the Eurocodes and the number of pages. You see there's one which is extremely voluminous, that is steel, of course, but also the others have quite many pages. And to give you the figures, steel is nearly 1,500 pages altogether. But also the others, like for example, the concrete structure is nearly 500 pages. It is something where you can imagine if you don't work daily with these codes, you will struggle. A master builder who is using the Eurocodes perhaps once a month, he will never be able to really do it because he has not the time to read all these pages. So the idea was different to the German approach, where the initiative wants to influence the next generation of the official Eurocodes. Our idea was to produce handbooks, simplified handbooks. That is a project which is not only our project as Austrian Institute of Construction Engineering, but there is also involved the Chamber of Architects and Engineers in Austria, the Chamber of Commerce, especially the Professional Association of Builders, Master Builders, and the Technical University of Vienna. And the task of this project is to draft simplified handbooks for the application, not of the Eurocodes, but for the application of Eurocode-conform structural design methods. So we are developing simplified design methods, which are still Eurocode-conform. How should it work? First of all, the purposes and the field of application, it should just be for smaller projects. If you have a large project, no way you should use the Eurocodes, and that will be done by a specialist who is able to do it, and he has no problem. But for the small projects, we would like to have simple solutions. So the slogan is simple solutions for simple projects. We also think that it is improving the understanding of the subject, because if a master builder is designing a small residential building and just putting the figures into the software, putting on the button, and he gets a result, he is no longer able to judge with a sort of plausibility control whether the result is correct or not. So we would like to come again to the slogan, use your brain before applying the software. Just calculate a little bit and then look whether the result of the computer is plausible or not plausible. And these handbooks should also increase this understanding of the subject. The concept is simplified calculation methods, partly radical simplified calculation methods, which are nevertheless compatible with the Eurocodes, but on the safe side. So if you fulfill these, if you apply these methods, you fulfill all the legal requirements which there are in Austria. The principles are, first of all, elimination of all cross-references. If you apply the Eurocodes, it's often that you have to switch to another page, to another chapter of the same Eurocode. You have to look to another Eurocode, and then you have again a reference, and just in order to get one value. So it's very awkward. We would like to avoid all cross-references, so everything should be in this one document, all in one. And all in one would also apply to the whole project, from the foundation to the roof. So in order to avoid that, for example, for a smaller residential building, you need to apply several parts of the Eurocode, or several Eurocodes. No, you should just apply this one handbook, and you have everything in this handbook. Also, with regard to the many classes which there are in the Eurocodes, the consequence classes, the design safety levels, the inspection levels, the execution classes, and so on, these classes would be determined. So there's a description of the kind of project and an indication which class you should apply. And also an important principle, the handbooks should be written in a manner that they also can be used in schools, but not as school books. It should not be a 6 school books with lots of explanations, but as a tool, so that also in the schools where they have a problem with getting the full information of the Eurocodes, they can get a flavor of the Eurocodes by using these handbooks in their education. With regard to the scope, they will only cover these parts: concrete structures, steel structures, timber structures, masonry, and geotechnical design. There will be a separate part with regard to the actions on structures. That will be a handbook on its own. And with regard to the basis of structural design, the Eurocode 0, and the design of structures for earthquake resistance, Eurocode 8, they will be integrated into each part. So if we have a part for, let's say, small residential buildings, we will have all information which is needed with regard to Eurocode 0, for example, which consequence class and design safety level and so on. And also everything which is required for Eurocode 8, that will be integrated in the particular handbook. And with regard to the earthquake resistance, this will not be a calculation, but a deemed to satisfy approach. So there will be a description of the measures, of the structural measures which need to be taken in order to be, again, on the safe side and to be sure that the Eurocode would be fulfilled on the safe side. That is more or less what I wanted to tell you. Yes, perhaps not covered, of course, is composite steel and concrete structures and aluminium structures. We presume that this is not a task for the small master builder, but there are specialists doing the work and they can apply the Eurocodes fully, so there is no need. I hope I have not, I started late.
Wonderful.
So, that was what I wanted to tell you about our Eurocode project. I hope it is of some interest for you. And thank you very much I forgot to say, we are restricting it to CC1. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Rainer.